This is the use of an automatic identification system, or AIS-based maritime domain awareness tool for detecting fishing activity in the waters of Caribbean states. I'd like to acknowledge the co-authors, Terry Ettienne from CARICOM Impacts, Rolerick Sobers from the RSS headquarters, Neville Wint from Impacts, and Chadine Allen from Impacts. And the outline of, very simply, an introduction, methodology, we combine results and discussion, and then we come to our overall conclusions. There's been a general concern in the region that illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as well as transnational organized crime, are a serious threat that undermines all our efforts to improve management and governance, and importantly, jeopardizes food security and blue economic development. But we've been having some progress in the region in combating the elements of IUU. Monitoring, control, and surveillance systems that are available to us now are able to blend technologies to provide some of the approaches that we're thinking of. And Ministerial Council and our technical people have actually addressed it and spoken about this. But I'm going to be focusing on maritime domain awareness tools or systems, which quickly and automatically detect deceptive fishing practices. The tool currently being utilized by the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, or IMPACTS, does a number of things. One, it seeks to provide real-time view of what's happening in the maritime ecosystem. Two, it offers artificial intelligence-powered behavioral risk assessments of vessels and companies and shipments and other entities. It relies on thousands of case studies and a number of parameters that include vessel routes, the type of activities, what we call dark activities when they cannot be picked up by VMS, and unusual changes in behavioral patterns. And the model overall, then the IUU model, is created by studying, in addition to this, known IUU fishing cases and analyzing the components of these activities, so we get a picture of what's happening. And that is built into the artificial intelligence. And utilizing this MDA for short system, CARICOM Impacts provides statistics on fishing statistics by a preset algorithm. So what we've done in this study, we've taken a time series of Excel reports from 2014 to 2022 that has been produced by Impacts and analyzed them for the number of vessel activity events, the amount of vessel activity hours. The difference, of course, should be obvious for member states, and for vessels of interest, we call, or what we can call as flag states, over the periods of years and months. And we've generated from that total number of activity events, total activity hours, average activity hours per month, per year, per member state, and a similar thing focusing on 2018 and 2022 together, those snapshot pictures across that broader period. And then we've also looked at average activity hours per month, per year. We've looked at the total activity hours by all vessels, and we've looked at those by nationally flagged vessels, and then we looked at what we see by vessels that are not flagged by countries of CARICOM. And of course, what we did with all of this is we went into Excel, Microsoft 365, and a program called Statistics version 7 to capture the descriptive statistics and the figures. So quickly, the results and discussion. One of the things we found is that the number of fishing activity hours increased from fairly small 200 in 2014 to about through 16,000 in 2018 and 212,000 in 2002. That's the number of activity hours. The graph shows you the activity events there, and you can see the increasing trend from 2014 to 2022. And this diagram here shows you when we pull out just from the shorter time period, 18 to 22, when we pull out the fishing activity by nationally flagged vessels, which were shown to be decreasing in other people's waters, but definitely by those that are non-members of CARICOM, you see that increasing trend from 2018 to 2022. So the highest incident of vessels in terms of activity hours were broadcasting through the AIS as coming from Venezuela. That's from 2019 to 2022. Interestingly enough, we did a quick look just before this conference to see what happened. And in the first 4 months of 2023, we found that this relatively high broadcast level was also observable. The high level in member states of this one member state broadcasting as being in the waters, carrying out activities that tend to imply fishing, was followed by vessels from the United States and those from China. In general, then, one of the concerns, though, is that there's an increasing trend of vessels of unknown origin. In other words, ones that we can't tell what country they belong to because the system cannot identify their flag state. It means one of two things. People are just shutting off the AIS systems, or they in fact are stateless. And if this is the case, that's a very worrying proposition that we really need to look at. So overall, though, to the discursive part of this, the MDA platform that has been utilized can provide countries with a heads up regarding activities of dubious nature by vessels of interest that are observed in their waters. And to give two examples, in March of 2021, a vessel of interest had made its way through several member states' EEZs and finally entering one member state's EEZ, where it was stopped and boarded by Coast Guard and escorted to port. It was searched in conjunction with the Fisheries Division for possible IUU fishing activities. What was found that there were possible violations of ICAT recommendations. And the analysis, though, showed that the AIS was deliberately turned off and the vessel was engaging in what we call dark activity on 19 separate occasions. In December of that same year, a suspicious vessel that had been in the region for the first time broadcast a false maritime mobile service identity number. This is like the name suggests, it's an identity number that is broadcast and allows you to identify it. But this also had no IMO number, and this was picked up on the MDA platform and tracked. When the due diligence check was conducted, it revealed that there were several entities operating under the same name. The point being that in general, the analysis of let me see, yeah, in general, the analysis of whether or not a fishing vessel may be involved, given the examples that we've shown, really and truly can be shared with the relevant authorities in member states, but what it does is it serves to elicit appropriate action. The thing is that while this type of activity engenders suspicion, we have to actually follow through with a definitive, to make a definitive judgment by actually intercepting the vessel. So the picture we can get from what I've spoken about lets you know something is going on. But there's a need to go out there and in a sense, ground truth. And this would actually enable a determination of whether the activity is illegal or whether it's contributing simply to unreported catches. We have that problem, especially sometimes when you find our own member states fishing vessels are observing these systems operating in other member states' EEZs. I think the key takeaway point is that we need to actually ground truth what we see. And when we get these results from something like an MDA platform, we need to ground truth it. So basically, in conclusion, I want to say that the use of an MDA system can enable greater insights into activities in the maritime space of member states, RSS, and also impacts areas of operation, particularly with respect to vessels that use AIS. Maritime law enforcement units, which receive the information, need to be better organized in utilizing the data. What we found is that really and truly the data goes in and we feel that it's not actually utilized to the best of the ability to allow us to maximize its utility. And this may mean, including among other things, carrying out trend analysis that can help improve the planning and execution of fisheries patrols in their jurisdictions. In all cases, there's a need for greater capability to facilitate routine, sometimes aerial operations that extend to the outer limits of their jurisdiction. And this may mean capacity building. We at the CRFM Secretariat, in collaboration with the Regional Security System Headquarters, have been carrying out training. Pam Gibson presented that earlier today, since 2017, and we've been trying to aim towards that, building that capacity to ensure that people are better able, and more we are incorporating these considerations that I'm presenting here into the training that we're doing. So it means that at the national, sub-regional, and regional levels, we must consider incorporating the use of the data obtained from the systems that we have. And I'm only speaking about one system here, but there actually are two other systems that are in use in the region, in our member countries, but to varying extents. And this has got to be incorporated at both the strategic level and at the operational planning level. So from this, we need to consider what these data may mean in terms of seeking to manage the very real, what we are now considering security threats. In this context, then, there's a need to have discussions in country between fisheries administrations, Coast Guard, Defense Force, maritime administrations, whatever they're called in the country, to analyze the data that comes in from something like these systems jointly as part of the common operating picture, and to come up with information that can assist the fight against IUU fishing. We can't overemphasize that. IUU fishing, fisheries crime, and making the distinction again with fishing-related crime and transnational organized crime in the industry. So it is important for our member states to, in addition to the in-country discussions, to cooperate with other affected countries to improve the general understanding and knowledge of the problem, to identify the countermeasures, and to build the capacities to prevent, deter, and eradicate IUU fishing and other associated fisheries crime. Very important to emphasize the in-country discussions that, my humble opinion, are not taking place to the extent that they should be. So I just want to acknowledge that our earlier version of this paper received feedback from Ian Ralby of Auxilium, Vistania Aya of Impacts, and the team at Windward Maritime AI. With that, thank you very much, and I'm willing to accept questions as the chair allows.
Yes, the chair allows. Thank you very much, Peter, for that presentation. It helps to lift the veil on a very clandestine activity in the Caribbean that we know we must find out more about, and in order to address it. So thank you for culminating our day with this particular presentation to help to put these types of issues into perspective. Now, I see two hands thus far, one from Alwyn Pontine and Milton Houghton. So I'll ask you to go ahead in that order, please.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation, Peter, as usual, thought-provoking. And just towards the end, you mentioned about the other systems, and I am reminded that a few years ago, that most of the CARICOM member states, the heads signed on to the Blue Justice Initiative. How would all of these be, all these systems be incorporated into one, so that we don't have overlapping, but we speak to one platform?
Well, I have a perspective, and this is my personal perspective, and not necessarily that of the CRFM Secretariat, that at the national level, we have the individual AIS or VMS systems that operate. At the regional level, this then feeds theoretically and practically into maritime domain awareness systems, or like the one used by Impacts and the other ones that are currently being used in the region. And then at the bigger, higher level, with the satellite imagery and all that available through the Blue Justice Initiative, that can give the bigger picture. So we have a series of steps that add information. And with that feeding through, for example, the Caribbean hub of the BJI that's launched for Jamaica and coordinated there, that information can flow back and forth, so to help strengthen the process of dealing with these maritime security issues. And this is my perspective, personal perspective, on how I see it linking together.
Yes, thank you for that question and the response. I think Milton Horton was next, and I see Zoe Fairman, and then one more person whose name I don't see as yet.
Yeah, very good presentation by Peter. And the fact is, this is focused on domain awareness. And a part of this whole presentation is really just to raise awareness and understanding of what is happening in our waters. And since we started using the technology to improve awareness of what is happening in our domain, or maritime domain, it had become clear that there's a lot more activity that's suspicious. We do not know if or what proportion of these are illegal fishing, but it is clear that many of these are very, very suspicious activity. But when you step back and look at the big picture, the reality is that most of our fishermen operate in the coastal waters. I would say maybe more than 95% of the fishing by our domestic fleet is limited to the coastal waters, the territorial seas, maybe the contiguous zone, and a little beyond that. And the reality is that in most countries, there is very little fishing in the outer reaches of our exclusive economic zones. And for some countries, those that have claimed the extended continental shelf, even less fishing, in that extended maritime area. So we really do not know what is happening, and we are focused on just the areas within which our domestic fishers are operating, which is very unfortunate. We need to really improve awareness and understanding among all our stakeholders of what is happening with respect to suspicious foreign illegal operations in our waters, because it's clear from the data that it is extensive. And what that really means is that we may be losing a lot of wealth, a lot of fish that really we should be harvesting ourselves and using to help with our food security challenges and generating export and jobs for our people. But we're not, because of various reasons. The second thing is really the capacity now to take action. Having detected with the aid of the satellites and technology, the big challenge is going out and finding out what really these vessels are doing, and take appropriate enforcement action, where necessary. So this is a big area that I think we need to pay attention to. Thanks, Peter, for that.
Yes, thank you, Milton. I direct your attention to a suggestion or a comment by one of the persons in the chat, stating that the AIS isn't only for IUU fishing, it's also for safety. And that has been part of what the Bahamas has used to justify the use of VMS, or exploring it. So that is an important point.
My name is Gary Aboud. I am a corporate secretary of a Trinidad and Tobago civil society group called Fishermen and Friends of the Sea. Thank you for your presentation, Peter. It was inspiring. The speed of your delivery and the grasp and knowledge was enlightening to me. However, I have some very simple questions that baffles me. How can we be tracking satellites in space, but we cannot track vessels moving illegal substances, arms and weaponry, human cargo right within our region? To me, it baffles our organization that in Trinidad, we have every type of contraband cargo, every imaginable type coming and going freely from Trinidad and Tobago. And quite frankly, a lot of it goes up north and passes all of the northern region countries to the lucrative US market, where sometimes it's in demand. My question is, have you ever considered the critical importance of a regional tracking and regional emergency response and security response mechanism to stop the illegal movement? In this instance, I'm arguing of substance in particular that's moving north. A simple common radar system. Peter spoke at length and intelligently about the importance of enforcement, interdiction, and surveillance. But there cannot be any interdiction unless we have a radar system. And the vessels that go out on these searches are wasting critical resources and very expensive vessels and fuel, and they are blind at sea. So my first question is, have you considered the opportunity that presents itself if we have a unified region, which in my respectful view we don't, that if we could unify against a common enemy of crime by having a unified radar system to monitor the movement of vessels throughout our region. The second thing I wanted to say was that in our beautiful island, we have sent home all of the staff in the Fisheries Division that collected data. So we don't have any data collection. And I think it's an opportunity for such an important entity as yours to consider mechanisms to have binding agreements of minimal standards of data collection so that we can correspond and coordinate the sustainable management of the fishery. Thirdly, I'm saying to you quite clearly that it is counterproductive for Barbados, Antigua, Grenada, and St. Vincent to have particular legislation if it does not synchronize with our legislation in Trinidad or with each other's legislation, since we are talking about a shared resource. And even if we had the legislation, this critical and important organization has an opportunity to lobby and work towards, with influence, a synchronized enforcement and a synchronized reporting template for updating on the evolution and the success or failure, challenges, risks, and threats to the enforcement and implementation of the said legislation.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. There are three crucial points you made there. I can't disagree with anything you said. However, you may need to note there is, one, the issue of a unified, collectively looking and unified radar. Yes, that is something that is useful. I think the maritime domain awareness tools that are available now to us allow for that, where countries are actually utilizing AIS. There are other methodologies that could actually assist in that regard. So your point is valid. In terms of legislation, but in terms of data collection, as far as I'm aware, the CARICOM countries have been speaking to the issue of harmonization in terms of main things in terms of data that should be collected. There have been variations on the theme, but in a general way, the countries have been looking towards a harmonization in terms of data. In terms of legislation, if you look at the legislation closely, at least definitely for the OECS countries, which use a harmonized fisheries legislation, and the other countries are either coming on board or building on the same theme. So in a sense, we are actually moving. And Robin Mahon's presentation in terms of the frameworks that were made yesterday, we do have and we have been looking at the question of harmonization in terms of legislative arrangements, in terms of these things. You may not be aware that there is a CARICOM maritime security strategy that has been developed, and agencies are working together towards its implementation once it becomes approved through the CARICOM approval process. It may already be, I'm not sure, but I think we are moving towards the types of things you have spoken about. The details, the specifics may not be exactly what you have said, but the outcomes of them in terms of the direction we go in, I feel confident to say that we are moving in those directions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for those contributions. I think I saw Mr. Ponteen's hand earlier, but it's taken down. Do you wish to speak still, sir?
Yes, just quickly. What I was saying is that this morning, I think the Blue Justice had, and I think the Blue Justice had, we had a session this morning, and one of the things I thought that Gavin he would have said something, but I think they're actually reaching out to member states who are actually part of that network to mobilize, be more active. Thanks.
Yeah, quick hot pursuit of that since we're talking security. The Blue Justice Initiative is actually has the potential to be of great assistance. Like I said, you can see it as a series of a stepwise movement upwards from the local up to the global, and the Blue Justice Initiative providing that global view, using technology that has a global reach. We can integrate them all into one system. I think the important thing is in fact, as it's been stated in the chat, one, utilizing the issue of safety as an incentive to get vessels where they have the size that can allow them to be installed, or using, like St. Lucia has been doing. St. Lucia has been working with one telecommunications provider to have something that would allow for vessel monitoring at a fairly cheap level. So there are the things, and utilizing what has been sold is like the gentleman Ian has been suggesting. What has been sold is that the safety advantage. But the point I want to make though is that the key thing for me, my key concern, is the question of that in-country discussions. The different agencies that have responsibility for this aspect of maritime security, and I'm happy to see that Impact has included IU fishing into its maritime security strategy. This aspect of maritime security in country, we need to be talking to each other a bit more. When information comes, we need to, hey, call up. Jamaica has developed a multi-agency mechanism, and the Ministerial Council of CRFM has recommended that other countries look towards doing that as well, where they allow for that discussion. Anyhow, yeah, I think I've said enough. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I see one more hand by Mr. Galvin Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. But just first of all, Peter made some of the points, but I just need to elaborate. And as the representative from TNT said, we need to be united as a region, and without unity in the region, we'll not be able to combat this scourge of IUU and crime that affects the fishery sector. And so the Blue Justice Initiative and the community is a secure platform where information can be shared both locally and regionally. Just a slight modification for what Peter said. He said that the hub is hosted in Jamaica, but it's a regional hub to assist for regional communication, regional cooperation to combat IUU and the other factors that you're speaking about in the region. And yes, I must say that the multi-agency mechanism that we have launched in Jamaica since 2022 has borne a lot of fruit, and it's something that we recommend. And through the Blue Justice community, I know that the UNDP will assist in the establishment in other regional jurisdictions. And it's something that we find to be very helpful in combating IUU and other fisheries crimes. So it is something we are reaching out to members of CRFM to join the community. We have sent out additional letters inviting persons, sending out the forms for them to come on board on the secure platform where there are training tools, there's educational tools, and access to tracking for vessels that are within our region. So, and just today, the Norwegians were again making us know that the satellite option for us to use to monitor our EEZs will be realized by hopefully December this year. So that's an additional tool for us to combat this problem. So thank you very much. Sorry to be speaking so long.
Nonetheless, thank you for your contribution, Mr. Bellamy. And as we wrap up this particular the discussion on this particular presentation, I'll just read just one of the comments from the chat and ask you to check those out as well. Some healthy contributions are there. And that one is by Carolyn Henry that states, the importance of this issue cannot be overstated. National governments legislate and put pressure on legal fishers without knowing the effect. As Milton said, it is very large, of external IUU fishing. And so based on what we're hearing today and how big of a problem it is, we could have easily had another U on the IUU for undetected. But fortunately, it's not there, but that doesn't mean it is not a problem. And so we as a region certainly need to move to address undetected fishing. And we need more work done in detecting it, research or developments like what Peter reported on today. I'd like to say thank you very much for your contributions today.